You ever have that moment when you realize someone has crossed a line so boldly, so shamelessly, that you stop whatever you're doing and just whisper, "No way. This can't be real"? That was me the morning I found the HOA president, our resident Karen, parked inside my garage like she owned the place. Not in front of it, not near it, inside it. And that was only the beginning. It started 3 weeks earlier, when the HOA announced some vague parking rearrangement initiative. Everyone in the neighborhood rolled their eyes, but no one expected Karen to interpret that as free access to my property. At first, I blamed my memory. Maybe I forgot to close the garage. Maybe someone borrowed the space. But then, it happened again, and again, and again. Every time I opened the garage door, there her beige SUV sat like some kind of monument to entitlement. The first time I confronted her, she didn't even pretend to be sorry. She just flipped her little clipboard, smiled that tight Karen smile, and said, "According to the new HOA guidelines, unused spaces can be temporarily reassigned for community efficiency." Unused? My garage? I work from home. My tools, my bikes, my entire workspace lived in there. The nerve of this woman was unreal. I tried being reasonable. I tried being calm. I even tried sending a politely worded email, which she ignored for 4 days before replying with a passive-aggressive, "per HOA protocol" message that didn't answer a single thing. It didn't matter. She kept parking there, like it was her private VIP slot. Then came the breaking point. One evening, I got home late and found her SUV wedged so close to my workbench that it nearly knocked over a box of power tools. That was it. Something snapped. I realized she wasn't confused. She wasn't misinformed. She was doing this because she thought I wouldn't fight back. And that's when the idea hit me. If Karen wanted to treat my garage like her personal kingdom, fine. But I was done playing nice. I was going to reclaim my space, my sanity, and, if necessary, my dignity. One locked door at a time. So the next morning, before leaving for the day, I locked the garage from the inside and left her, not one, but 2 surprises waiting when she tried to pull her stunt again. But before I tell you what those surprises were, you need to understand, I'm not the type who usually gets revenge. I avoid drama. I avoid conflict. Yet Karen had pushed me so far that the calmest neighbor would have snapped. When Karen rolled up that morning, I was already watching from my kitchen window, coffee in hand, waiting like it was the season finale of a drama series. She strutted toward my garage with the same confidence she reserved for HOA meetings. The confidence of someone who believed rules existed for everyone except her. She tapped her key fob twice, like she was unlocking her destiny, then grabbed the garage handle, and stopped. Locked, not jammed, not stuck. Locked. Her face went through 5 stages of Karen grief in 10 seconds. Confusion, denial, irritation, offense, and finally that trademark outrage she specialized in. She yanked the handle again, and again. She even leaned in, as if her proximity alone could intimidate the lock into submission. Then she did what every Karen does when confronted with reality. She whipped out her phone. I couldn't hear her from inside, but I could imagine the conversation. "This is a violation of community access regulations. My authority is being undermined. I need emergency HOA response." She paced like a malfunctioning robot, gesturing aggressively at my garage door. But the beauty of my plan was that surprise number 1 wasn't the lock. It was the sign. Neatly taped to the center of the garage door was a bright laminated notice that read, "Garage under owner investigation. Unauthorized entry will be recorded and reported to police." Simple, direct, legal, and absolutely terrifying to someone who'd been using my property without permission. She froze. Her eyes scanned the sign again and again, as if the words would rearrange themselves into something less incriminating. She took a step back, clutching her clipboard like it was a security blanket. For the first time since this nightmare started, she looked unsure. That sign wasn't just decoration, it was bait. She had no idea whether I had cameras inside, whether I'd already reported her, or whether stepping 1 inch closer could get her into real trouble. And the thing about Karens? They crumble the moment they might face consequences. She circled the garage like she was inspecting a crime scene, taking pictures from dramatic angles, muttering into her phone. Every gesture screamed one thing. She wasn't in control anymore. And watching her panic? Honestly, it felt glorious, but she wasn't done. Karen never backs down after one obstacle. She stormed toward my front door with the determination of someone ready to unload a full speech about community standards. Good, that was exactly what I wanted. Because surprise number 2 was waiting for her right there. Karen marched toward my front porch like she was storming the gates of a castle that had refused her royal entry. Clipboard under her arm, sunglasses pushed dramatically onto her head, heels clacking like she wanted the entire neighborhood to know justice. Karen's version of it was about to be served. Perfect, because taped neatly to my front door, waiting for her like a gift-wrapped reality check, was surprise number 2. It wasn't loud. It wasn't aggressive. It wasn't even confrontational. It was simply a printed copy of the actual HOA bylaws, highlighted in neon yellow, with a sticky note attached that said, Per HOA Section 4B, no member may utilize another resident's private property without written permission from the property owner. Consider this your notice. And right below it, in slightly smaller handwriting, also, please stop parking in my garage. Karen stopped in her tracks. She blinked at the paper, then leaned in, squinted, and blinked again, as if the words might magically change into something that favored her. They didn't. Her jaw clenched so tightly I thought she'd crack a tooth. She ripped the paper from the door, scanned the highlighted section, and you could practically see the exact second she realized she had no defense, no loophole, no imaginary rule she could twist. She was trapped by her own beloved HOA regulations. For a full minute, she just stood there frozen, caught between rage and humiliation. I opened the door right then, keeping my expression neutral, though inside I felt like cheering. Oh, Karen, I said calmly, I see you found the notice. Her nostrils flared. This is misinterpretation. I didn't violate anything. You parked inside my locked property without permission, I replied. Multiple times. That garage was unused, she snapped. I gestured toward the tools visible through the window. It's literally full. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Then she resorted to classic Karen damage control. Deflection. You can't just lock me out of a community shared, functional structure. It's my garage. Silence. Behind us, a couple of neighbors had peeked outside, sensing drama. Karen noticed them too, and the awareness that she had an audience only deepened the crimson shade spreading across her cheeks. Finally, she threw the bylaws page onto my porch like a teenager tossing homework and stomped back toward her SUV. She wasn't done, not even close. Karen never retreats quietly, and I knew that look on her face. The wheels were turning, the entitlement was brewing, and the HOA battlefield was about to expand. For the next 2 days, Karen went completely silent. No SUV in my driveway, no passive-aggressive emails, no dramatic door slamming. It was the quiet before a storm. The kind of silence that tells you someone is planning something. And sure enough, on the 3rd evening, an official HOA notification slid under my door like a courtroom summons. A special emergency meeting. Mandatory attendance. Topic: resident misconduct and garage access violations. In other words, me. I actually laughed. Karen couldn't win with facts, so she was going to try what she always relied on. Intimidation, public embarrassment, and a room full of neighbors she assumed would take her side. What she didn't realize was that people had been whispering about her for months. I wasn't the first person she'd targeted, just the first one to actually push back. Still, I showed up early. The meeting room was already decorated with her energy. Clipboard on the table, papers fanned out dramatically, a projector she absolutely did not know how to use, and of course, her beige SUV parked diagonally across 2 spaces outside. Neighbors trickled in, carrying coffee, kids, and varying degrees of annoyance. Karen stood at the front like she was about to deliver a presidential address. Thank you for joining this urgent session, she announced, tapping the microphone that wasn't even switched on. We have a serious issue regarding community cooperation. A resident, and I won't name names, has been obstructing authorized HOA access and creating unnecessary hostility. All eyes shifted to me. I didn't move. I didn't react. I just waited, she continued, voice dripping with false concern. Certain garage spaces must remain available for community use to ensure efficient parking distribution. However, one resident has blocked entry, posted threatening notices, and refused to comply with HOA policy. That's when I calmly raised my hand. Karen, I said, would you like to read Section 4B of the bylaws aloud? The one you ripped off my door? A ripple of snickering moved through the room. Her face tightened. This is not the time for personal attacks. No personal attack, just the actual rule. I handed her a fresh copy, highlighted just like before. She snatched it, skimmed the first line, and I swear you could hear her soul deflate. A neighbor spoke up. Wait, So you parked inside his garage? Like in it? Another added. You told me my kids couldn't chalk on the sidewalk, but you're parking in people's homes? The room wasn't on her side. Not anymore. And Karen, realizing she'd walked into her own trap, began scrambling for excuses. The real meltdown was seconds away. Karen stood at the front of the room, gripping the highlighted bylaws page like it was a snake that had just bitten her. Her eyes darted across the room, desperately searching for even one sympathetic face. But the neighbors weren't buying it anymore. The spell she'd held over the HOA was finally cracking. She cleared her throat, voice trembling. This is being blown completely out of proportion. The garage in question was visibly unused and it had power tools, storage bins, and a giant workbench in it, a neighbor interrupted. Mine doesn't look that full and I still wouldn't call it unused. Karen tried again. Well, the HOA president has discretionary authority to— No, you don't, said Mr. Lopez from the back, waving a bylaws booklet he probably hadn't touched in years. Section 4B is very clear. Private property is private. No exceptions. Another neighbor added. You've written people up for leaving their trash cans out for 5 minutes. And now you're invading someone's garage? That's insane. The room hummed with agreement. Karen's face twisted. She slammed her clipboard onto the table so hard the pen clipped to it flew off. This community has become unbelievably hostile. I've tried to bring order, structure, to this neighborhood, and instead I get disrespected at every turn. Karen, I said calmly, all I asked was for you to stop parking in my garage. She whipped toward me. You humiliated me. No, I replied. You did that to yourself. Her mouth opened and closed like she was trying to reboot mid-rage. Then, in a moment I'll never forget, she yelled, I had to park there because my driveway was too small and it wasn't fair. The room went silent. Someone whispered, Bro, what? Even Karen seemed shocked at her own outburst. She quickly tried to recover, straightening her posture. What I mean is, there were extenuating circumstances, but it was too late. The meltdown had happened, and the HOA board members, who until now had been awkwardly quiet, finally stepped forward. Karen, one of them said gently, you violated property rules, repeatedly, and you attempted to discipline a resident who was actually following the regulations. Another added, until further notice, your authority as HOA president is suspended pending review. Gasps filled the room. Karen's eyes widened in disbelief. You can't do that! But they already had. She stormed out of the meeting, practically sprinting toward her SUV, which, as poetic justice would have it, was now boxed in by 2 other cars. She tried backing up, squeezing through, but nope. She was stuck. The neighborhood watched her meltdown from the windows like it was primetime TV. And as for me, I went home, unlocked my garage, and finally enjoyed the peace that Karen had tried so hard to steal.